Hi, my name's Ridley, and once again welcome to another crisis leadership and management education tutorial. In this section we're focusing on stakeholder analysis, engagement, and what we're covering in this particular sequence is going to be outcomes and processes. So we've spoken previously, making sure that we have a determined outcome. We know in advance what it is that we want to achieve prior to releasing or engaging or connecting with any and all of our stakeholders. Transparency, facts, limiting rumours, and certainly limiting legal exposure. All of those are valid and pertinent and relevant in terms of why we would do that. But again, as I mentioned in one of the prior sessions, is that it's not good enough to be intuitive. It's not something that can be jotted on the back of a napkin. There has to be a replicatable an analytical process applied, whether it's something that's evolved within the organisation, or you borrow templates, or it's something specific that you've developed on in the event of the crisis. It's something that has to be documented and consistent. So here's an introduction, or here's an overview of a simplified 4-step process for the identification of stakeholders. Exactly how are they involved in the project, or let's call it a project or a crisis. Remembering words are everything. You don't necessarily wish to pick up the phone or release a piece of communications that is consistently referencing crisis, disaster, folly, failure. Terminology is everything, and it's not necessarily, and it's certainly ill-advised to position it that way, but certainly project, event, incident, issue, all of those sorts of things. It's not a subtle wordsmithing, but it's certainly a de-escalation and evidence of the fact that you have a plan, you've got a response, and you are implementing it regardless of the outcomes, good, bad, or otherwise. You'll be certainly judged later on in terms of the effectiveness of that, but it's much better for the positioning. So, how are they involved in the situation or the events? Who's interested in what processes? It's a very, very basic start point. Just basically jotting these points down, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet, it is on the back of a napkin, but having some consistent replicatable process. Then identifying and demonstrating the relationship. Where exactly do they sit? How is it that they're interested? How is it that they're influential? Do they sit on a key advisory board? Do they hold 25% of shares in the organisation? Are they the editor-in-chief of the major news desk in your region? All those sorts of things, they have to be qualified in terms of the relationship. Then making an understanding or an assessment of the individual or the individuals, remembering that you could be dealing with one person or a collective body, and looking at it from their perspective. How are they likely to interpret this information? If, as I said previously, you only communicate during times of disaster, then the sheer fact that you have released a piece of communication or wish to have dialogue in itself may convey that there's a far greater problem, or something that is not necessarily factual, but has been read into because of the way that you've historically communicated. So look at it from their perspective, walk a mile in their shoes, determine exactly how they're likely to perceive, and then make sure that your message and your outcome is consistent with the potential interpretation or context or perception management of that particular release. And this is indicative of a single piece of communication or a suite of communications. You need to maintain consistency. Then looking at the means and processes, how you manage, how you follow up, how you answer any questions, any measuring, monitoring, surveillance of exactly what has happened, anticipation, what sort of triggers need to occur before you then can satisfactorily determine that your objective was met, it wasn't met, it's taken a new direction. In light of new information, you have to reevaluate the plan, put it contextual. All of these sorts of things need to be step by step fundamentally introduced. So this is a very basic overview of a 4-step process: the identification of stakeholders, their relationship, understanding how they're likely to interpret it, and then having a quality QA/QC, quality assurance, quality control system to make sure that you are getting the verifiable and validated results that you set out to achieve in the first instance. So once again, thanks very much for joining us. For further information and similar tutorials on crisis leadership and management, please go to the website www.crisismanagement.tony-ridley.com. Once again, thanks very much, and that's all. Bye.